Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Can everybody hear me? I see a little shaking. Yes, good. Okay. So Patty, I see your question in the chat. Yes, everything will be available for future reference for you. I think our plan right now is to take a little bit of time to compile all the presentations at the close of convention, and we'll get them all uploaded onto a website and send out links to that so you're able to review it the same way you viewed it with this. So we'll send out kind of an agenda with links to all the videos for you to refer back to. So yes is the answer to that question. So welcome everybody. Is everybody having a good morning so far? Thank you for your patience with our technology. It's been an interesting transition from live in person, which was what we're all used to being virtual. And even those of us that feel pretty techie are struggling a little today. So thanks for being so patient. My name is Stacy Ruddy. For those who don't know me, I'm the president-elect for Colorado PTA. I have served in lots of different roles from my start in PTA as a local unit treasurer all the way up to where I'm at now. I've served at council as the president and treasurer for council. So I have lots of experience in different positions with different types of work. And today I'm going to be doing we call it president/vice president or president-elect training because our hope is always that our VPs will eventually one day become president, right? We like to have that continuation of service and volunteerism, and we appreciate you guys for stepping up to the plate to serve in those roles. And so I have my lovely facilitator, Jennifer, here with me, and she's going to work on getting our videos started. So I'll get muted. I will tell you my awesome, huge 95-pound Catahoula leopard hound dog makes a guest appearance in the video. So it is not a seamless video. So I appreciate you guys having some grace with that too. It took me a lot of takes at home. And when he barked, I thought, oh, forget it. It's just going to be character to the video. So I'm going to let Jennifer go ahead and see if we can get this playing. And then we'll be opening up to questions in a little bit here. Hi, everyone, and welcome to PTA President and Vice President training. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started, and we will be holding all questions until the end of this presentation. Feel free to take notes, but we will also ensure that this is available for you to review at a later time if needed. So some PTA basics. Our mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. And you can see our values listed here as well. We try to keep these at the core of everything that we do in PTA and make sure that all of our activities and things that we're supporting within our schools and communities all tie back to this basic PTA mission and values. We'll talk more about the bylaws in a bit, but they are basically the governing rules that include some basic things such as our local unit name, who are our officers, who should be our standing and special committees, how often we need to host meetings, what constitutes a quorum, which is typically required if we're going to have any type of a vote, how nominations, elections, and vacancies work within our unit, and some details about how our finances should be tended to. Parliamentary procedure is a basic set of rules for how we can conduct orderly meetings. We tend to use Robert's Rules of Order or Bob's Rules. Bob's Rules is simply a more casual version of Robert's Rules, and you can find books online that you can purchase that detail some of these basic rules, but they basically ensure that we are only considering one item at a time when we're having a vote. They make sure that all sides are heard when we're having discussion and that everyone has had an opportunity to give input before we have the vote. And then we basically use a majority rule to determine the outcome of a vote. We do recommend that every officer and committee chair keep a procedure book. And this is a set of documents that can really help the next person who's coming into your position to have a successful start in that position. So you might include items such as position descriptions, a copy of your bylaws or standing rules if you have them, a calendar or the calendar from the prior year to give them some guideline about how you managed your position, a place to store copies of your meeting minutes, any forms they might need, and it can be helpful to have a contact list. The contact list could be contacts on your executive committee or board or committee chairs, or could be a list of contacts that you've used in the past for your position. There are other documents that you can include with your procedure book. Your field service team did create a template of a table of contents for a procedure book that includes some of the items we felt would be appropriate to include in the beginning of a procedure book. And we can get you a copy of that if you'd like. Just contact your field service person or our office staff, and we can send that to you. None of these are requirements, it's optional. And so for each different position, there might be different things you feel are more applicable to contain in that book than others. It can be an electronic book. We just want to ensure that from year to year or term to term, these can be passed along to really help the person taking on your position to have a successful start to that position. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and the IRS classification for this states that we are operated solely to accomplish a charitable purpose or mission. And that is why what we do comes back to our mission. Each and everything that we do should come back to that mission. We do have a few rules that we have to follow as a 501c3, and those are detailed here. So we are required to file an appropriate 990 form. For most of our units, that will be a 990N or E postcard, and it's a very simple form that you do online that takes about 5 to 10 minutes. There are units that will need to complete a more detailed 990, and part of the benefit of being part of PTA is that we do have people who can help you with this. So our field service team is here to help with this. Our state officers are here to help with this. So if you're someone who needs to fill a more complicated form or you need to do a 990N and you're not sure where to start, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you with this form. We do have to ensure that no single individual benefits from PTA funds. So we are asked a lot about, a tragedy within a school community, and can we accept donations for a person or a family? And we really try to steer away from that. Everything that we do in PTA should benefit all of our families, all of our children. And so if you have questions about how you can help to support someone within your school community, please reach out to us. We have had some experience with that and can give you some guidelines or recommendations about how we've had units successfully navigate that in the past. As a 501c3, we should abstain from supporting or campaigning for a candidate for public office, but we can support legislation. We do want to limit the time and money we are spending to influence legislation, and we want to ensure that the legislation supports our basic mission and values in PTA. We should be limiting fundraising from trade or business that is unrelated to PTA mission and purpose. So we really need to look at, when we work with a business or a group, we need to look at their mission and their vision and make sure that it aligns with our own. So the bottom line, if you're not sure of the answer, I would start with your bylaws. You should keep a copy of your bylaws. And again, a procedure book's a great place for that. They can be stored electronically as well. You should make sure that you read them. Every time I read the bylaws, I note something that is kind of a reminder that I hadn't been fresh in my memory. And so it's a good idea to review them from year to year, especially if you're having turnover in your board or executive committee. You should know when they need to be updated. We do ask units that they update these every 3 years. And once you update and make needed changes, you will hold a vote of your general membership to approve the updated document, and then you will submit them to our office. And once they are submitted, they are considered approved until you hear otherwise. And so they're we expect that you're following the bylaws and what you've detailed in there. If there's anything in there we have question about, you'll hear back from a member of our state board letting you know what we either need clarification on or what needs to be updated or changed. You should know where to obtain a copy if they're misplaced. So if you are sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I've never seen our bylaws, I didn't even know that we had a copy, a bylaw, please reach out to office@copta.org or to your field service representative, or you can call our state office and we can get you a copy of your bylaws, of your most recent bylaws, and let you know when they're due to be updated. Some basic policies: we are non-commercial, non-sectarian, and nonpartisan. Non-commercial means that we do not engage in business that is unrelated to our purposes of PTA. We do not endorse products, companies, or foundations. And this is different than supporting a sponsor. So if you have someone that sponsors your PTA or donates money or goods to your PTA, you can certainly share with your PTA community that this business or foundation has supported your PTA in this way and that you appreciate their support. We just can't endorse them and say you should choose their company over another company. We can accept donations, of course, and it's great if you have a means to give people receipts when they do give you donations, something that has our tax ID number on it so that they can use that if they're tracking charitable contributions. You should be familiar with local, state, and federal requirements of being non-commercial. Non-sectarian means that we do try to focus on diversity. We do acknowledge that people do lead spiritual lives and that there are many different religious groups and secular, non-secular groups out there, but we really try to just be all-encompassing, and we really believe in inclusivity and making sure that everyone feels welcome. And we believe in recognizing that not all of our members will share the same beliefs, and it's important to acknowledge that and try to keep that in mind when you are, hosting events and things of that nature, that even though it may not fall on a holiday that you celebrate, it may fall on a date that's important to another group. So it's really important to make sure you have a comprehensive calendar you're using and consider things such as that nature when you're planning events. Nonpartisan is actually part of our IRS code, and it means that we may propose, support, or oppose legislation or ideas, but we may not propose, support, or oppose people. We are first and foremost an advocacy organization. So we encourage you to go out and support legislation and ideas and get behind things that are going to help better your school and school community or lives for your families. We are not a fundraising group, and a lot of people have a misconception about PTA that we're here to fundraise and raise money for our schools, but in reality, we are here to advocate for our schools and our children to have the funding that they need to be able to be successful and thrive and achieve their goals. And so in that sense, we do occasionally do fundraising, and I know a lot of our PTAs have been amazing at supplementing what their schools are able to do, and we're certainly not asking you to stop doing that. But we do want schools to recognize that we are here as supporters and a partner in our children's educational journey, and that we're not just here to raise money and turn it over to the schools. We are a nonprofit. So under the 501c3 IRS code, this means that we do not pay taxes on our gross receipts, and we may accept donations that are tax deductible for the donor. We do not tend to pay application fees either for our tax exempt status. As a local unit chartered under Colorado PTA, you are chartered under the umbrella of our tax exempt status. And this is why we really ask that you try to stay in good standing when we ask you to complete your 990 or your financial review and things of that nature. It's because you are falling under our nonprofit as Colorado PTA, and we need to stay in good status with the IRS, which means we need our local units to also be in good status. Some other nonprofit responsibilities, we do, again, have to adhere to our purposes. We need to keep correct and orderly financial records. We are required to conduct an annual audit or financial review. The difference between those two items, an audit is typically done by a licensed person like a CPA, whereas a financial review can be done by a layperson. And we are required to file appropriate 990 RS forms. For most of our units that have a fiscal year of July 1st to June 30th, this would occur on November 15th. That would be our due date. It's 5 months after the close of your fiscal year on the 15th day. Standing rules. So we have many units that'll ask, what are standing rules and should we have them? Basically, standing rules would include any details that aren't in your bylaws. And you want to ensure that they don't conflict with your bylaws. They're there to kind of help derail conflict, but also to kind of help provide additional detail about things, basic procedures and the way that you might want things done that aren't going to change from year to year. Things you might have standing rules that encompass something such as meeting norms, so silencing cell phones, or how reimbursements will be handled and what type of a timeline, or using what type of a form to request those reimbursements. They should be adopted by the body that they will impact. And so that means if it's a board of directors standing rule where it's maybe your executive committee and other members on your board that is impacting, then that would be the group that would approve those. So they're a little bit easier to approve because they don't necessarily have to be approved by your entire membership. They can help improve efficiency, in particular of your meetings, and the way that your group runs. However, you do want to be careful not to create too many standing rules. When they become really robust, it becomes difficult for people to remember what's in there. And then suddenly you find you're not adhering to them because they're so long, no one can find the information that they need when they need it to detail what you're supposed to do in any given situation. So it's a good idea to organize them as well. And we can provide you with a template if you would like, or a copy of what some general standing rules might look like, or some ideas about what you could incorporate into those. They are not required though. So we do have a lot of units that choose not to use them, and that's okay. So who is the PTA president? You will chair the board and general meetings. You oversee financial compliance. You serve as a liaison with your school administration and any community partners. You're going to check in regularly with your officers and committees to make sure that your overall plan is on target, and identify challenges and invite solutions. So just some general information about what your responsibilities would include. You want to make sure that individual is familiar with your PTA programs and resources. They will be the face of PTA in the community, and thus you want to make sure it's someone who can represent PTA in a positive light, and ensure it's someone who can communicate what your unit is working on or the needs of your unit in a successful manner. They will be recruiting and mentoring volunteers and future leaders, and so you want to make sure it's someone who's kind of a people person in that regard. They will often volunteer at your events when available, but they don't have to. Your PTA president does not necessarily have to be able to attend every event, and it's great if they can, but this is why you have a whole team. So we've found that great presidents have leadership, planning, and public speaking skills and experience. And then who is the PTA Vice President? That person will implement duties delegated by the president. So it's really someone who's there to be a support person for your president. They will represent your president in his or their absence, and perform specific duties that are detailed in the bylaws. So again, if you resort back to your bylaws, you'll see that it does list some duties for the basic officers. And so you want to make sure that those encompass what you'd like that person to be responsible for within your unit. Again, they should be familiar with PTA programs and resources, and ideally they're preparing for leadership. So our hope is that they are in that position with the desire to move up into the president role at some point. And so we do encourage them to attend training that might be offered within the council, region, state, or by the national PTA. goal setting. So in order to know where we are going, we need to know where we have been. However, the one thing I'll say about this is I've been in many, many, many meetings where I have heard this statement, and I'm sure some of you have too. We've already tried that. We've already done that. It didn't work. I will tell you that in my experience, while that is true, sometimes things change. So I do encourage you, if you feel like you've tried something in the past, but things are potentially different now, or the way that you're going to approach the event or the activity or whatever it is that you're discussing is in a different situation, then I encourage you to try it again. I will say I attended a president's training several years ago, and one of our national presidents said something that's really stuck with me and resonated with me all these years. And she said, "You only get one presidency, so make it yours." And that really stuck with me. It's your presidency and you want to make it your own, and your passion and motivation is going to be felt in your team if you really pursue doing things that you're passionate about and excited about. And if that's something that's been tried before and didn't work, it doesn't mean that it won't work if you decide you want to try it again. It is a good idea to consider surveying your schools. I've been at meetings before where a unit said, "Well, we can't get any volunteers for our, our silent auction." And I'll say, "Okay, but maybe your school doesn't want a silent auction. Maybe they don't enjoy the silent auction. Maybe it feels like a lot of pressure to them." So it's always a good idea to reach out to families and ask, "What would you like to see us do this year? What do you feel like is missing in your child's life?" And use that feedback when you're creating your events and picking and choosing the items you're going to work on that year. We do recommend using SMART goals. There's a couple of different acronyms I've heard for this, but the one that sticks with me is that your goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time limited, or have a time frame associated with them. And there are other words that have gone with those initials in the past, but basically you want to make sure that you're picking goals that you can actually achieve. You're setting a time frame in which you'll work on those goals. You want to make sure you have a way to tell whether or not you met your goal. And you want to make sure that there are things that people can wrap their minds around and get on board with, and that they're things that people also feel passionately about and excited about. We do have a sample goal planning guide that we can provide you, and can send you via email, electronically, if you would like, to kind of help you with that goal planning process. So every year the PTA should prepare a budget. It's nice to use the goals as a guide for this budget, because your goals will identify some of the items you want to work on for that year. You can look back to the prior year's budget, or even several years' budget, to try to determine what you might expect to spend in a particular category. And you want to basically come up with a draft budget that is going to be approved by your general membership. Once you've approved a budget, you need to follow that budget. There are ways to amend the budget, and this is identified in your bylaws. But you want to make sure that you're, in general, following that budget, because that's how you told your membership you plan to spend their money for that year. So some additional information here. You need to have insurance. It is a requirement for our local units that you carry insurance each year, and that is to protect you and your board against embezzlement and theft and any problems that might arise, and if someone gets injured, and all of these things. PTA has long partnered with Association and Insurance Management, or AIM, to provide a discount to our local units, because they have worked for PTA with PTAs for many years. They have a pretty comprehensive view of what our local units need as far as insurance goes, and they've created some packages for us to support those needs. However, this is not required. You may choose any insurance company that you choose, so long as they meet the coverages that are needed. We do recommend that you budget for leadership development and training. And this may be training your board, it might be training your executive committee, it might be training one individual. We do try to offer a lot of
non or low cost options for training. However, we do offer things that do have a cost associated, and it's a very reasonable use of your PTA funds to ensure that your group can attend these trainings. So reach out to your field service representative if you need more information about options for training. We did decide a few years ago to incorporate training requirements into our healthy units and good standing requirements, because we feel in order to be effective at a lot of these positions, you need to be able to have some basic knowledge about what is required and some legal information about, implications for not doing things and so forth. So please reach out to us if you have questions about that. It's definitely appropriate to use PTA funds to hold programs or assemblies, and we've had PTAs do this successfully in the past. And so you can work with your school leadership to determine where you might be able to successfully supplement what the school is doing or offer some kind of enrichment. It is very appropriate to use funds for recognition of or awards for student achievement. I know many units that offer a PTA award at the end of a school year, and the PTA might come together and determine how they're going to select a recipient for that award. And the only requirement I would say is that any student's able to be eligible. We don't want to have it limited to just a particular group. You may use your funds for curriculum enhancement. We do discourage PTAs from purchasing actual curriculum, because that is something that our state government, local government, or federal government should be funding. And so we try not to fund things that really should be funded through other sources. You can use your PTA funds for equipment. Again, I would say just try to avoid purchasing items that really should be purchased by other means. But we have had students purchase items that were kind of supplemental or an upgrade or something fun and exciting for the school to have that they wouldn't have otherwise had access to. You can use PTA funds as well to support after-school programs, and there's lots of different examples of that. So back to fundraising again. We are not a money-making or money-raising organization. And in fact, material aid to school is not a primary function of PTA. We want to make sure that we're supporting our mission and our values and our basic purposes, and we should never be exploiting children. We want to ensure that we're always protecting the PTA name and our tax-exempt status. And as part of that, we cannot donate to another organization. And then we go back to this 1 to 3 rule. And basically that rule is a general guideline, not really a rule, but for each fundraiser you should try to have 3 non-fundraising activities. And that's just to ensure that there's some balance and that we're not just constantly asking families for money. You should plan first and then fundraise, not vice versa. And I would say this is possibly one of the more important statements on this side. What that means is we shouldn't raise a bunch of money and then say, what should we spend it on? Instead, we should be coming up with a plan, setting goals, choosing the activities we want to do, and then determining how we're going to support and pay for those activities. So fundraising should really be after the planning and organizing part. So the bottom line here, whose money is it? The money belongs to our membership. It's their money, it's not our money, and therefore we should always be going back to our members and asking what they would like to do with their money, what type of activities they would like to have, what they feel is missing from their child's experience. So on to our PTA meetings. We want to try to run successful meetings, and this gets a little bit tricky as you're trying to accommodate a variety of people. You do want to try to schedule meetings at convenient times, and this is really going to vary. So there may be schools where you find that more of your PTA membership is available during the day. There may be other times that there are more people available in the evenings. Others may be available on weekends. You may need to have multiple meetings to cover everything or ensure that you're being inclusive of everyone. I don't know many PTAs that do that, but it's certainly an option. I do know many PTAs now, in particular in the light of the the time period that we're in, who host hybrid meetings where they do have an option to attend virtually or online or via social media. And that is something you can consider. There are specific considerations in regards to voting, and we do have electronic voting procedures that we can give you if needed. But I would consider all of those things before you schedule meetings. I tend to use some programs online for figuring out the best times and days for people to meet. The one I probably use the most is a Doodle Poll, and it's just a free online site that allows you to create basically options with times and dates that you can send out to a group, and they can pick and choose the time and date that works for them, and then send it back to you, and you can kind of choose the one that worked best for the group. I think there's many, many different programs just like that out there. So that's an option for coming up with, an easy way to come up with a good meeting time for everyone. You should try to set an agenda ahead of time. And we do have a sample agenda handout that we can provide for you. And you want to send this out ahead of time so people know what you're going to be discussing. If I see something on an agenda that's really important to me, I'm much more likely to make an effort to attend that meeting because I know that's going to be discussed. You should set some ground rules at the beginning of the meeting. It's important to let people know how the meeting will run. In particular, if you decide to do a hybrid model or you're having people attend in different forms, maybe some in person and some online or only online, it's important to let people know expectations ahead of time. It's great if you can begin and end a meeting on a positive tone. That really leaves people with a good taste in their mouth as they leave a meeting, and also, starts the meeting on a positive note, getting some energy going within the group. You want to make sure that you have met your quorum requirements, and this is absolutely necessary if you're going to be voting on something. You can refer back to your bylaws, which will tell you what your quorum is. You want to make sure that you stay on track and on time. So we've used the analogy in the past that you can picture yourself as a conductor, and your role as the leader of that meeting is to make sure that people aren't veering too far off track, or that they're not talking on and on when you're running out of time. And a good way to do this can be to set time limits for the topics you're going to discuss during a meeting, though there will be time that you recognize that a topic's going to require a little bit more time, and you're going to have to decide what to do with that. Do you table something else on your agenda and push it off for another meeting, or do you say we're going to stop talking about this at this time and maybe we'll revisit it at a later time? So all things to consider during the meeting. You want to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. And this again goes back to Robert's rules or Bob's rules. It's really important that people feel heard. And you will always have different personalities that attend your meetings. And so you may have someone who feels very comfortable speaking in front of a crowd and always willing to give their opinion and input, but you may have someone else there who's a little bit more shy and reserved, and feels uncomfortable speaking in front of a group. So you want to make sure that you're giving opportunity to everyone to speak. And sometimes that means saying, hey, so-and-so, you've been very quiet, and I just want to make sure, did you have anything you'd want to add? And sometimes if you give them that opportunity in a very relaxed way, they will take the opportunity to give some input, and they may not, and that's okay. You need to make sure that minutes are being taken. And so that's a responsibility of your unit secretary to take minutes. The minutes, we have a whole course on minutes, and they should not be including opinions of people in attendance, but really just the factual events that took place at the meeting. And they're very important. You'll find when you need to come back and refer to them at a later date or time to remember what was said or what was approved. It's a great idea to take the Parliamentary Procedure e-learning course. We can help you locate that online if you need help finding it. It's just a very good way to ensure that you're following good parliamentary procedure. If you've attended one of our Colorado PTA conventions in the past, you've witnessed some pretty good parliamentary procedure. I think we've gotten it down to a fairly good science. And that is probably the most conservative parliamentary procedure you'll see. It can be a little bit more relaxed in a meeting if you want it to be. You do want to make sure you're sticking to business. Committee work should really be completed in committee. So when you come to a meeting, it should just be to hold whatever needed votes, discuss whatever needed business, but not to actually do the work. That should be taking place outside of the meetings. I do know there are units where sometimes you want to deal with quick, concise decisions within a meeting, and that's okay, I think. But for the most part, the details of the work should be handled outside of your primary meeting. So growing your membership. We are a membership organization, and as such, if we don't have members, it's hard to exist. So it is really important to understand membership, how your membership works, the value of membership, and these are some details about how you can achieve that. So leading your PTA really begins with relationships. You should understand your personal why. That is, why did I join PTA? Why do I stay in PTA? It's really important to understand what brings us each to the table, and our personal values and why we're here is going to be different for each individual. So you do want to make sure that you're not only sharing your why, but also listening to others and understanding their perspective and why they are there. You want to value their time, and that comes back to starting and ending meetings on time, making sure that you let individuals know how much you appreciate their presence. It's really important to make sure that you're understanding that others' time is valuable, as is yours, and this includes your board and your other executive committee members. You just want to make sure that people understand that you do value them being there with you. You should ensure you're supporting your membership chair in recruitment activities. So a common PTA phrase that we use is membership is everyone's responsibility. It is not the sole responsibility of your membership chair to get members for your organization. It should be every single member of your board and executive committee, every committee chair, every member of your PTA should be out there engaging other individuals and explaining to them why it's so important to be a part of this organization. And we do recommend individuals develop an elevator speech, and that's about a 1-minute pitch about why you believe in PTA and why you think that they would be a valuable member. And it's important to kind of practice that and have it in mind so that when you encounter others, you can quickly and easily educate them about the value of being a part of your organization. You should also make sure that you're educated and that your members understand that there's a lot of special offers and member benefits out there. So national PTA partners with different organizations and offers benefits, the state PTA partners and offers benefits. And you as a local unit PTA can also partner with different organizations in your community and offer benefits. So these would be deals or specials that you get that you receive as being a member of PTA. I do know many local units who will offer discounts at, when attending PTA events, or a free item or early access to something for their members. So when you offer those benefits of membership, you will always have individuals who don't understand the larger picture of us advocating for children at the school, at the state level, at the national level, but really like the idea of receiving a tangible benefit for their membership. So it's great to offer perks in both regards. So where can you find support if any of this seems foreign to you? Please reach out to Colorado PTA. We have representatives assigned to each region and council. And if you're not sure what region or council you're in, reach out to the state office and we can help direct you. There are some national PTA e-learning courses, actually a pretty robust library at this point that information is all free to you. The access is free to you. And if you need help accessing that, please let us know. We can help with that. The National PTA still does publish Our Children magazine. They've gone to a more virtual publication for the most part, but we can provide you a link to that. And so that magazine has articles from local units, state and national leaders, and really kind of helps at all different types of levels to really recognize how we can help achieve some of our goals. The Colorado PTA does publish a local unit handbook every year, and that is to be a resource for you and help with some basic duties of your PTA. We provide forms in that book, sample budgets, there's templates for completing your financial review. There are membership resources, advocacy resources, health, wellness, and safety resources. We've really tried to make it a concise document that you can use and you can share with the other members of your executive committee and board that can just make things a little bit easier for you. So that handbook is located on our website at www.copta.org. It can also be sent to you electronically by contacting our state office or through reaching out to one of your region or council representatives. You can find support in your previous PTA officers. They have been in your role, they know what it is like, and they can often provide a lot of beneficial feedback and suggestions for you. PTA.org is the national PTA website, and there is a huge, robust amount of information there. You can attend conventions and trainings. There's a state convention usually every year. And then there is a national convention as well that's held every year. And then we do have trainings at the council level, at the region level, and at the state level throughout the course of each year. So please reach out to us and we can give you a calendar that lists some of those items. We also have a calendar on our website at copta.org. National PTA also publishes quick reference guides for each of the officers' position, and this is meant to be just kind of a quick handbook that can help you in your specific role. So that's another resource. There are many other resources beyond this small list, and if you reach out to your region or council representative, they can provide you additional resources specific to your situation or question. So before we go on to taking any questions, I just want to thank all of you for everything that you do for PTA to support that every child's potential is a reality. We certainly couldn't do this without you. And all of these little faces sure do appreciate everything that you do to make sure that as they grow and develop, that they are able to accomplish everything they set out in life to accomplish. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for being here today.
Okay, so let me get my video on. Good. So I did want to mention one of the links on there or one of the resources. The Quick Start Guides were renamed to National PTA Local Leader Kit. And so I wanted to mention that. I do have a few files I'm going to try to share in the chat if it works. And I know there were lots of good questions coming through the chat during the presentation. And so we tried to get some of them, but the ones that I didn't have the links quickly available, we're saving our chats from these presentations, and I will send all that information out, and I'll send it to the whole group. So let me see if I can find these couple files that I saved. And then for those of you who, let's see, here's the first one. These are some meeting tips. So hopefully this will work for you guys. So our local unit handbook that we create every year is available on the Colorado PTA website at copta.org. And I think Karen kind of listed that too in the chat. And so that local unit handbook has, you know, a lot of sample templates too, a sample budget, a sample reimbursement form, a sample deposit form, all kinds of resources in there. So a lot of this stuff that was talked about in this video is in there as well. So this is a sample meeting agenda, sample meeting minutes, and meeting tips that I shared in the chat. And we can make those available outside of this forum too. So I'm taking screenshots of the attendees so I know who you are, so I'm able to get you information after the fact since we're a fast moving group. But I did want to get an opportunity if anybody has any questions that they want to ask outside of the chat. Anybody have any burning questions?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So I've been looking at a lot of these resources and things, and they are fantastic, and I am glad that we have them. But they all seem like a lot of things like what you can just do or read or review on your own. Are there any kinds of like forums or groups that are online where you could really just be like chatting and just saying like, you know, here's something we're trying to work on, for example,
Yes.
this program, what have people done that is successful? Like kind of a more are there some groups, like even just like a Facebook group?
Yeah,
But
there is. We actually have a Facebook group for PTA presidents. I'm going to go copy it right now and I'll paste it into the chat. And we started that group a few years ago. It's a little tricky because from year to year, as people turn over, you know,
sure.
we don't necessarily review the group to boot people out, but we do get a lot of additional people. So it's called the COPTA President's Corner. And I'm going to copy the link as soon as my internet opens it here, and I will paste it. So we do have, it's not always the most busy group. And in particular, in light of COVID, it's been, you know, challenging. People are a little short on time and energy and whatnot. But that's a good place where you can ask a quick question. We've had people say, hey, I'm trying to do this. What did you do? National PTA also has several groups. And let me see if I can find one of those quickly. I'll paste it as well. Those groups are a little bit more active and you're interacting with PTAs from all over the nation in those groups. And so that's kind of cool too. And so their group is called PTA Local Leaders. Oh, thank you, Christine. So Christine linked it. She's on it. So that's a great group and a lot more kind of robust of a group. So I've had a lot of good feedback in that group when I've needed a quick answer to something. So those are probably the two I would go to. And then we have people volunteering to be your sounding board, which is super awesome. It's really kind of the benefit of PTA. And I think now that a lot of us have transitioned into this more of a comfort with technology, or at least using Zoom or some of the webinar software, you know, I would be willing to tell people, hey, text me, I'll hop on a Zoom with you, because it's kind of nice to see faces and stuff when you're talking. So what other questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've got one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We've got a request to partner with a company that's a nonprofit, where we would try to put the information out there for our membership and school, if they're not memberships, just publish, where they could participate. Each individual family or whatever could participate for a certain amount each year, and then $5 per family would get kicked back to us. The program itself could possibly align. It's environmental composting and stuff like that. To me, it's a little iffy. I don't I don't know if I want our, you know, us pushing out the marketing for another group to, you know, just for the access to ours. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So I think it really depends on how you approach it, right? So we do want to partner with like-minded groups, and we want it to be a partnership. So there's different ways to go about that. There's times that we co-sign on to things with other groups because we're like-minded. So, you know, I would just make sure that you're considering, you know, it's one thing to kind of share your sponsors or share people who are supporting you. It's another thing to advertise for another group. So you have to look at how you're approaching it. If you are co-sponsoring an event or an opportunity for people, that's one thing. And you have to look at what partnerships are giving back to your PTA. So if you're in a partnership with someone, but it's just you putting their name everywhere and you're not really getting anything out of that, unless it's a huge benefit to your members, that might not be worth it for you. So I would just talk with your, you know, your group, your exec or your board about what this looks like and how do we go about this in a way that we're not advertising. When we share our sponsors, it's not to advertise, it's to thank them for supporting us. Mm-hmm. But if they're not supporting us, then what are we really thanking them for, you know? So it's a fine line for sure. And if you ever put something together like that and you want, somebody from our group to take a look at it and just make sure it looks on the up and up, we're absolutely happy to do that for you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think, Emily, did you have your hand up?
No, I hit the wrong button. Thank you, though.
Oh, that's okay. I'm not good with the hands up, but I have people helping me out. So I'm going to wrap up because we do have these back-to-back workshops, and I want to allow you guys time to not only transition, but if you have to go potty. So you are more than welcome to email me. My email is Stacy Ruddy, STACI. I'm going to put it in the chat, RUDDY@copta.org. All of our exec and board and committee chairs emails are all posted on our website, copta.org, so you can get access to any of us if you need. So you can kind of talk to the person who, might be knowledgeable about what your needs are. I'm going to also post our workshop survey. It's like a little evaluation of the workshop in the chat, but it's also on your email with all the links to the Zooms. And on that note, I'm going to let you all transition to your next workshop. And thank you for being here. And again, thank you for what you guys are doing for your schools. I'm excited to get to work with all of you over this next term.